على ضفاف إحدى البحيرات شمال شيكاغو ها هي العذراء مريم Our Lady of the Lake. وكما في نواحي صيدا وصور كانت تنتظر ابنها العائد من خدمة التبشير، ها هي اليوم في هذا المكان تنتظر وتنظر إلى الرسل الجدد الذين يحملون رسالة ابنها بملء الإنسانية والفرح.
This campus was started around 1920. It was proclaimed by Mundelein that he was going to build a seminary, and the construction began early in the 1920s, and it took about 14 years for him to achieve all of this. The speed is immense, and in the meantime, he also hosted the International Eucharistic Congress here on this site as well. But it took 14 years to get from that end to that end. So almost all of the buildings were built in that space of 14-year period, from 1920 to 1934. The entire campus is on, the original plot was about 1,000 acres, but that includes the entirety of the lake and the woods that are out there as well. This part of campus is closer to about 200 acres on this side. Where we are right now is the campus of the University of St. Mary the Lake, Mundelein Seminary. This is the major seminary for the Archdiocese of Chicago. So we're about 40 miles, though, outside of Chicago, because Cardinal Mundelein, who built this place, decided that he needed to create a full campus to express some very important ideas. Those ideas really most centered around the idea that one can be fully a part of the United States of America and fully Catholic. And this university, this seminary, all of our education is dedicated to helping people bring Christ to the people where they are right now in the United States and now even beyond as the vision has expanded.
في إكليريكية مندلاين وفي مساحات خضراء تحيط بها المياه والأشجار يمتد مجمع ضخم يضم حوالي 15 مبنى. هنا في هذا المكان ينشأ كهنة المستقبل ليكونوا خداما صالحين وكهنة قديسين يخدمون الله من خلال خدمة أخيهم الإنسان. تأسست هذه الجامعة في عام 1844 مع أول أسقف لشيكاغو ويليام كوارتر في إلينوي. أما هذا المجمع بشكله الحالي يعود في تطوره وتطويره إلى الكاردينال جورج ماندلاين رئيس أساقفة شيكاغو يومها، حيث بدأ بهذا المشروع الضخم سنة 1921 واستغرق العمل فيه 14 سنة لإتمام الأبنية كما هي عليه اليوم. وبالرغم من ارتباط الكنيسة الكاثوليكية بالكنيسة الرومانية، إلا أن الهندسة الخارجية للمباني وللكنيسة أيضاً اتخذت شكل الهندسة الأمريكية الكولونية من حيث الشكل أو مواد البناء. وبحسب قول الكاردينال ماندلاين نستطيع أن نكون في العمق كاثوليك وأيضاً في العمق أمريكيين.
And this, the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception, which is the main chapel here on campus, is a statement that you can be fully Catholic and fully American. Our whole campus, if you look around, is built in what's known as a Georgian style or a colonial style. It's a distinct American style of architecture that emerged shortly after the American Revolution.
الكنيسة هي المبنى الأهم في الجامعة، هي نقطة البداية والنهاية. منها يستمد الطلاب والإكليريكيون بقوة الصلاة استمرارية دراساتهم وأبحاثهم واستعداداتهم ليعودوا إليها في خدمة الأسرار كهنة أبرار. الكنيسة على اسم الحبل بها بلادناس l'Immaculée Conception. الهندسة مزيج بين الهندسة الكولونية الأمريكية والغريغورية. من الخارج اتخذت مسحة أمريكية، ومن الداخل اتخذت المسحة الغريغورية.
Where we are right now is the very center of our campus, the University of St. Mary the Lake Mundelein Seminary. Where I am in the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception is what it is all about. The heart of who we are and of what we do here at the University of St. Mary the Lake is rooted in the sacramental worship of God. And here in this chapel is where all of the members of the university come together to worship God, and through their study, their prayer is enhanced, and through their prayer, their study becomes better. But the foundation of everything that we do is rooted here.
فهي أيضاً تجمع من الداخل بين الضخامة والبساطة، وما اللون الأبيض الذي يطغى على الداخل إلا انعكاس لروح البيوت الأمريكية وانعكاس للطهارة التي يجب عليها أن يكون المؤمن.
When you look at this building, the first thing that you see is how very Catholic it is. This is a Catholic building. This is the Catholic heart that Mundelein wants us to do. And as a school of ministry, we help people to bring the truth of the encounter of Jesus Christ and the church to others, whether that's through our training of priests, but we also have master's degrees and higher degrees that other people can come and gain further insights into liturgy, pastoral leadership, or even advanced theological degrees. But they are all helping people to translate their own personal encounter, particularly their sacramental encounter with Jesus, into action in the world.
I think first and foremost the people we have here, between the faculty, the staff, and then all the seminarians and students that come here, they're really great. It really is a treat to be here, and we certainly have studies, we certainly have classes, we have times to pray together, but we have a lot of great fraternal events. Get to be outside when it's nice. Of course, it's Chicago, so it gets pretty cold in the winter. But we have a lot of great fraternal events, and it's just a real treat to be with the other guys, and knowing that especially with my fellow seminarians, that we're all working towards the same thing. We all want to be priests of Jesus Christ. We all are striving towards that. So we're striving for holiness, and in a specific way, as men studying to be priests. So there's a lot of great fraternity and bonding among that shared desire, that shared vision. Certainly a lot of personalities and different ways to go about that, but that's probably my favorite part, is being with the guys, and it's the thing that I will for sure miss the most once I graduate. Is all the guys here, and then same to say for the faculty. We have a top-notch faculty, some real characters, but some very, very smart and competent and caring teachers and professors. Some are lay faculty, some are priests, and they're all again all of their own specialties and whatnot. But it's really a joy. So you're learning all the things you have to learn, but the camaraderie, the way you're learning it, the way that it's being taught it's an important thing, and that's the best part.
Those steps are the orders that you would go through as you became priest. You began as a doorkeeper and moved all the way up to a priest. But when a priest was ordained here by the bishop, the very first thing he would do when he turns around is he sees above the doorway, the exit, which says in Latin, "Go and teach." Go bring the faith to the world, echoing the Great Commission. And that's really the heart of who we are, is that we help people, God willing, and to the best of our ability, always cooperating with grace, to fulfill the Great Commission. And the Great Commission can have lots of different accents, like you saw on the outside of the building. And many people in many cultures are experiencing that same struggle. What's good about our culture that we can use to speak the faith? This is a dynamic in the life of the church that goes all the way back to the early church. You can see it in the Acts of the Apostles, the patristic period. It's always the same question. What in our culture can speak the faith? Mundelein had his vision of how our American culture could speak the faith, and we help other people in more cultures than just the US culture now find that reality of how to speak the faith to the culture around them.
وفي حين تغيب التماثيل والأيقونات من الكنائس الأمريكية البروتستانتية، نراها موجودة وبقوة في الكنائس الكاثوليكية الأمريكية، وتطغى أيضاً عليها الكتابات اللاتينية التي تشدد على مدى ارتباطها بالكنيسة الرومانية. كتابات، رسوم، زخرفات مذهبة، أيقونات، تماثيل ونوافذ، زجاجياتها الملونة تروي قصصاً إنجيلية. من هنا ما يحكى إنها تحاكي الإيمان. This church speaks the faith.
My name is Father Jake Beltran. I am the Vice Rector and Director of Admission of Mundelein Seminary. I am a priest of the Archdiocese of Chicago. I've been ordained originally in the Philippines, 1987. I was born and raised there. I joined my family here in 1992. And in 1999, I started ministry in the Archdiocese of Chicago. And I've been working here at Mundelein Seminary for 12 years now. Mundelein Seminary, first and foremost, has a singular purpose, which is to train and form parish priests. And we provide integral formation of the four dimensions: human, spiritual, intellectual, and pastoral priestly commitment. As to your question, what does Mundelein Seminary or University of St. Mary of the Lake offers? We offer a variety of programs. We have a STL or licentiate in sacred theology. We offer master's program also in liturgy, in pastoral studies, and in any other field, theology. And we offer also an licentiate in liturgy. So as you know, Mundelein Seminary is one of the major seminaries in the U.S. So that means those who are coming from college seminary and finish those 4 years of college seminary, either philosophy, whatever major. And when they come here from college seminary, they start with the major seminary program starting first year theology until the last year, fourth year. And those who graduated from college and not coming from the college seminary, then they start with pre-theology. We have pre-theology 1 and pre-theology 2. And once they're done with pre-theology 1 and 2, then they're ready to start with the 4 years theology program. And regarding admission process, so the number one standard is that all the candidates, all the seminarians or students who are coming to Mundelein Seminary have been endorsed by their respective bishops and their what we call vocation board of each diocese. Currently, we have more than 25 dioceses across the U.S., and we're expecting 132 seminarians this coming school year. And so first endorsed by their respective ordinary or bishops, by their vocation board, and they have done psychological exams, and they've really expressed a sincere and genuine motivation and discernment to become a priest.
The ordering of your life, and it's very easy on any campus or any college or any activity is you can just let your priorities and the way that you attack things and the way you view things, you can just let that get out of order very easily. So as soon as God is not the priority in your day, the priority in your week, in your semester, in your year, in your life, then things get out of whack. Sometimes not very quickly, sometimes it's just like it falls apart fast. So that's been a huge thing to learn how to prioritize God. So that's done through prayer, through the liturgy, through interacting with, bringing Jesus and the gospel to people. Those are the things that take priority. And when you start putting homework or other activities, as good as they are, as soon as you start putting those above God and prayer, things go south, things fall apart pretty quickly. And so learning how to prioritize. Now, once God is there at the center, once you're putting prayer, and then everything else it kind of radiates out from that. So you're able to enjoy all the other things more and find the holiness in all the other things. So even when we're out playing soccer, we're playing basketball, we're out on the golf course, right? You're able to enjoy that and find the holiness in that and find God in those things. Whereas if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, then it just kind of feels a little bit off, and you lose focus, you lose the reason why we're here.
The most important things a priest does is to lead the congregation in worship and in prayer. And so we help them to do that, both in academic study and then also in some practical classes. So they learn about the sacraments, their history, the theology behind them, what they mean in the life of Christians. And then they also learn how to celebrate the different rites and prayers of the church. They learn how to celebrate baptism in a practicum class. They learn how to celebrate the Mass. And so it's a combination. They learn and they study, but then they also have practical skill.
I would say that Mundelein Seminary, without question, has taken all the different fragments of my life and helped me to integrate them together, but in a way that has been enlightened by faith and by my own experience of Jesus Christ. So one of the things that I've certainly learned while I've been here, as I've gone through the formation process, is certainly not just learning about facts and learning about theology, learning about history, but also in taking just, like I said, all the different parts of my life leading up to seminary, as well as the man that I know that God calls me to be as his priest, and putting all of that together and placing that in front of the Lord and saying, Lord, how can I use all of this? How can I use what you're teaching me, but also how can I use what you've already gifted to me? And how will the graces that you desire to give me for future ministry work together? So here at the seminary, we don't just focus exclusively on intellectual formation. As important as that is, we're also, we work very hard to make sure that all of the men here are well-formed from a human perspective, understanding that, understanding what their limitations are, what their strengths are, how do they interact with people, how do they interact with the people that they'll be working with, a good preaching as well as good study, being a good teacher. And then with that too is understanding ourselves. And I think that's where the spiritual formation comes in, is because we will ultimately understand ourselves better in the light of God, and our spiritual directors here, as well as our formation staff in the spiritual aspects, are excellent at helping us to recognize where is God already present in my life, and where is he present, where will he be present as ministry will continue into the future. I went from a time in my life where I wasn't practicing very much. I was a Catholic mostly in name, but certainly not in my practice, but also in my behavior as well. And I found myself living kind of a dual lifestyle where I had like a Catholic side that would show up on Sundays, or at least for an hour on Sundays. But then there was another part of me, and I noticed that dissonance between the two of them, and that caused me a lot of unhappiness. And it was that desire for happiness, though it wasn't a very mature desire for happiness, but it was that desire that ultimately led me to God, because I knew that there was something within me that was not fulfilled. And as I reached out to God, really for the first time in my life in a meaningful way, I found God was calling me, not just to place him at the center of my life where I had him on the peripheries, but also that God was calling me to a deeper life in my vocation. And that was very difficult when I first started to think about that and to pray about it. I rejected that a lot. But just very slowly, just recognizing what my fears were, but also recognizing that God would provide everything needed for the vocation, that's what helped give me permission to say yes. And it was just been a little yes every single day. And thanks be to God, I'll be a priest ordained for Chicago next year.
So every student, every seminarian here at Mundelein Seminary is assigned a parish for the time that the tenure that they are here, either for 4 years or 6 years, that they are assigned to this parish, and they will learn how to, the practical and pastoral skills. They will receive a lot of mentorship from the pastor or associate priest assigned to these parishes, as well as lay leaders. They will learn to cultivate personal relationship with parishioners and learning the reality in the parish and how they prepare themselves to be future priests and shepherd for God's people.
So a seminary is a very particular kind of theological education. In a seminary, if you look at the church documents, for example, there's a document called The Gift of the Priestly Vocation. And so at a seminary, it is an education in how to make a gift of oneself. It's said to be an education in love. And so that's very different from just studying books, right? So how does one learn to make a gift of themselves in love, to live a sacrificial life? And so we have 4 dimensions of our education. It's not just studying out of books, but we
practicing, maybe?
Yes, so pastoral formation, spiritual formation, intellectual formation, of course, which would be study as well, and then also we have human formation.
We listen to God by creating a space of silence in our lives, by taking time to be alone with God, and then also by listening to Him in the liturgy, in the Mass, in the Divine Liturgy. God is speaking to us there. He's speaking to us in the Scriptures. So in taking time aside to be alone with Him and to meditate on His words. And this is a reading that's not simply an intellectual reading, but to really let the Word penetrate into your heart.
When you read a book, what are you encountering?
Sure.
When you are formed pastorally, who are you encountering? When you are seeking spiritual formation, we hope that you are encountering God. And then also humanly, have you encountered yourself?
Of course.
And do you have self-knowledge? Because if you don't have self-knowledge, you can't make a self-gift, right? So those are the things that we consider to balance the education. I think the last thing that was mentioned, that ability to know oneself in order to make a gift of oneself, we have focused very intentionally on human formation. And to do that, we've actually investigated what they're doing at medical schools. Medical schools need to train a physician to be compassionate, right? Because if the physician is not compassionate, it's hard to diagnose the patient. The patient won't reveal what's wrong with them necessarily, and they won't necessarily want to follow the advice of the doctor. We see ourselves as educating physicians of souls.
True.
And so like the doctor, our students need to be compassionate. And so we've adopted a model that's used in medical schools called simulation. And in a simulation, the student has the opportunity in an extremely realistic setting to encounter another individual with unobtrusive observation from faculty, behind one-way glass, so that we can see authentically how that student would really react in a personal encounter, often with very emotionally charged topics. And then the faculty member can provide feedback directly to that student and sometimes inquire, oh, I saw that you had this reaction when the person said this. What was going on inside of you? and then help that student to achieve that self-knowledge so that they can then, perhaps alter behaviors in the future. But the goal is to form them to be compassionate, to be loving ministers, doctors of souls. And so that's one of the things. We just actually received a $5 million grant from the Lilly Foundation to proceed with that program. So
the other program I'd like to share is what here at Mundelein Seminary we have been blessed with generous benefactors supporting our Holy Land pilgrimage. So our third-year men, usually during the winter quarter, we send our third-year men to the Holy Land for 7 weeks. They visit Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Nazareth, and other holy sites. It's an opportunity for them to study, to pray, to really prepare, especially for their diaconate ordination. They also spend 1 week of canonical retreat as they prepare for their diaconate ordination. And for the most part, our seminarians who have been to this Holy Land pilgrimage would testify and say that it has been one of the most transformative spiritual experiences in their seminary career.
من الكنيسة التي تحاكي القلب والإيمان إلى المكتبة التي تحاكي الفكر والعقل، من أضخم المكتبات الجامعية وأعرقها، وهي تنقسم إلى قسمين: القسم الورقي أي الكتب والمخطوطات والجرائد والمجلات، والقسم الإلكتروني والذي يضم أهم المراجع من أي بوكس وغيرها، وأكثر من 15,000 مجلة إلكترونية. تضم المكتبة الورقية أكثر من 200,000 مجلد وكتاب ومخطوطات تعود المراجع إلى أهم العلماء والفيزيائيين ككوبرنيك وغيرهم، وأكبر اللاهوتيين كمرتوم الأكويني، وكتابات القديسين كمار أغسطينوس وغيره من كبار اللاهوتيين والفلاسفة.
I'm sitting in the library here at the University of St. Mary the Lake, and this part of the library was built by Cardinal Mundelein, and his understanding of knowledge is something that we try to hold to today, that if you want to speak Christ to the culture, you need to know things. And it's not just scripture and theology. You need to have an expansive understanding of other pieces of wisdom that are out there that may come from the world or from other societies. And there's a band of names in the library around me that Cardinal Mundelein is teaching us about this. So above us, there's the name of Manzoni, an Italian novelist. There's also fathers, Jerome and Augustine and Venerable Bede. And there's astronomers like Copernicus, and there's even poets like Dryden being listed here. What Mundelein is trying to tell us is that Christian knowledge is worth studying, and it needs to be studied in an expansive way.
ببنائها الضخم والفخم تسجل هذه المكتبة المكان الفكري الراقي للأبحاث والمعلومات، حيث ترتكز التنشئة أيضاً على هذا العالم العلمي والفكري، لأن الكاهن هو من يعمل في قلب المجتمعات، وتشكل هذه المكتبة مرجعاً للآلاف من الطلاب والباحثين، ولا سيما في أبحاث اللاهوت والليتورجيا والتعليم المسيحي. وتتميز هذه المكتبة بهندسة داخلية منقولة عن الهندسة الإيطالية، بحيث هي شبيهة بقصر بربريني الإيطالي.
So this library is inspired by the library at the College of Propaganda Fidei in Rome, where Cardinal Mundelein studied. And he wanted to reproduce much of the feeling of that Barberini Palace where he studied. And so these tables were built in the 1920s, and the ceiling was built in the 1920s. But the ceiling, the bees on the ceiling, the bees on the woodwork, all of these things are elements from an Italian palace. But really what you get to do is, in this little slice of Mundelein, Illinois, in the middle of Middle America, when you sit down here, you feel like you're studying at a Roman university.
مباني المجمع الجامعي تشكل في إحدى أقسامها مكاناً لإقامة الكهنة والطلاب الإكليريكيين، وفي مبان أخرى تتوزع الكليات والنشاطات. كلية اللاهوت التي أصبحت كلية حبرية بالتواصل ومباركة الكرسي الرسولي في عام 1926 أقيم فيها أول مؤتمر قرباني عن الإفخارستية. في هذه الكلية تتم تنشئة وتهيئة أكثر من 200 كاهن في العام، أتين من أكثر من 40 أبرشية، 30 منها من شيكاغو والأخرى من أبرشيات في أمريكا أو من الخارج. وتتوزع الاختصاصات على دراسة اللاهوت والفلسفة والليتورجيا ودورات في التنشئة المسيحية وتدريبات على مختلف الأصعدة. وتعتبر هذه الجامعة هي الأكبر والأوسع على وسع الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية من حيث اختصاص الفلسفة واللاهوت. في داخلها كنيسة صغيرة على اسم وشفاعة القديس البابا يوحنا بولس الثاني، تتسم ببساطتها وتحتوي على أيقونة مميزة للبابا الراحل داخلها ذخيرة منه هي عبارة عن دم من دمه.
This portrait here of John Paul II is our reliquary for our relic of the saintly Pope. You can see it here at the very top is the relic that we have, which is of John Paul II's blood. This was a lot of effort went into getting a hold of this relic. There was a lot of connections between cardinals and papal secretaries and different things like that. But it finally came to us as a way of dedicating this chapel and inspiring the next generation of leaders to have the same courage and the same dedication to the entire Catholic global family that John Paul II did.
في الداخل ينمو الفكر بالمعرفة والإيمان، وفي الخارج تنمو الروح بالصلاة والتأمل. أيضاً في باحات خارجية وساحات خضراء ومساحات شاسعة في ممراتها وعلى جوانبها مزارات تحملك إلى أماكن القداسة، ومزارات أخرى في العالم كمزار سانت لورد وغيرها من المزارات. هنا في هذه الأمكنة ينمو كهنة المستقبل الذين دعاهم الله إلى خدمة مميزة بالنعمة والحكمة والقامة، وتهدف الجامعة إلى تنشئتهم وفق أبعاد 4: بعد فكري يقود إلى عالم الفكر والمعرفة والعلم، بعد روحي يجعل الكاهن يتسلح بالصلاة والتقوى، بعد إنساني وفق محبة يسوع: من أحبني أحب إخوتي هؤلاء الصغار، بعد رعوي وفق التدريب على القيادة، فالكاهن هو القائد الروحي والمثال لأبناء رعيته، عليه أن يواكبهم في تنوع علومهم وقضاياهم في عالم باتت فيه وسائل الاتصال الحديثة والذكاء الاصطناعي هو من ينشئ الأجيال أكثر من البيوت ومراكز التعليم. لابد من جامعة كجامعة سانت ماري أوف ذا ليك ماندلاين تنشئ كهنة يشكلون جسر عبور بين تحديات الحاضر والحفاظ على قيم الماضي وتبني ما هو مفيد من المستجد. فهي مسؤولة عن تنشئة كهنة يمسكون بأيدي شعب الله ويعبرون به جسور التحديات للوصول إلى ميناء يسوع في رحلة أعظم حب.